What if the myths and legends you grew up with weren't just stories? What if they were all that's left of a truth so big, it could rewrite human history as we know it? For centuries, we've been told that gods, demigods, and wise beings from our ancient past were pure fiction. But when you start connecting the dots, a strange pattern emerges. Before history was ever written down, our oldest stories were already telling tales of powerful figures, ancient guardians secretly shaping our path. Today, we're pulling on those threads, looking at the historical facts behind the legends, and asking a provocative question. What if our forgotten past holds a secret about a future they planned for us? Think about the dawn of civilization. As humanity is just starting to figure things out, the same kinds of stories pop up everywhere. From Mesopotamia to Mesoamerica, cultures that were totally separate began telling tales of powerful, non-human teachers. In ancient Greece, they spoke of the Titans, beings who were the literal embodiment of things like the oceans, or time itself, giving humanity a way to understand a chaotic world. In Egypt, the sun god Ra wasn't just a deity. His daily journey across the sky was the divine clock that set the rhythm for all of life and farming. Now, the standard explanation is that these are just creation myths, early humans trying to make sense of nature by giving it a face. But when you look at the bigger picture, a pattern is hard to ignore. Why do so many of our foundational myths start with a gift from the gods? Knowledge of agriculture, art, lore stories insist these things were given to us. Mainstream thought says this is just our brain's tendency to personify natural forces. But is it just a weird coincidence of human psychology? Or could these stories be the fragmented, distorted echo of a real, worldwide event? A time when humanity was mentored by beings far older and far wiser than ourselves. Let's go back to ancient Greece. The city of Athens, the birthplace of democracy, had a patron goddess, Athena. She was the goddess of wisdom and, more importantly, strategic warfare. She appears in Homer's Odyssey, guiding the hero Odysseus through impossible challenges. She was so vital to the city's identity that they built the Parthenon in her honor, a temple that still stands today as a monument to her influence. Of course, no serious historian would argue that Athena was a literal person walking the streets of Athens. She was a religious concept, a powerful symbol for the ideals Athenians strived for: intellect over brute force, strategy over chaos. But the idea of Athena had a very real, tangible impact. It shaped their society and guided their military strategies, helping them fight off the massive Persian Empire. So, where did such a revolutionary concept come from? Was it a complete invention? Or is it possible this powerful idea was an inherited memory, a guiding principle, a strategic doctrine, left by a forgotten teacher and eventually deified as a goddess? Could the idea of Athena be the ghost of a real guardian's influence on our world? Take a figure like Merlin. He's the classic wizard, the shadowy advisor whispering in a king's ear, guiding a whole nation toward a golden age. The story is legendary. The Sword in the Stone, Camelot, a kingdom built on wisdom and justice. But where did he come from? The earliest hints trace back to a figure named Merlin, a prophetic wild man in Welsh poems from before the Merlin we know. Hundreds of years later, in the 12th century, a writer named Geoffrey of Monmouth gathered these old Celtic tales and basically created the Merlin we recognize today, connecting him to King Arthur. So, let's be clear, most historians rightfully see the Arthurian Merlin as a literary invention, a character created from folklore and political hopes. But that just makes you wonder, why was this legend so powerful? Why did it resonate so deeply? So let's ask a different question. Instead of asking if Merlin was a real person, what if the character of Merlin is a sort of composite memory? A memory of a real tradition of druidic advisors and wisdom keepers who really did guide kings through the chaos of the Dark Ages after the Romans left Britain. Maybe Merlin wasn't a single person, but a title for a guardian whose job was to nurture civilization through its darkest hour. The legend had to start somewhere. What if it started with a forgotten history of real guardianship? Now, let's jump thousands of miles across the Atlantic, where an almost identical story plays out. In Mesoamerica, the Aztecs told stories of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. He wasn't a god of war or storms, but a creator god who brought knowledge, art, farming, and the calendar to the people. He was seen as the great civilizer, a guardian of society itself. This is where the line between myth and history gets really blurry. Ancient Aztec and Toltec writings explicitly connect the god, Quetzalcoatl, to a real historical ruler, a 10th century king named Tepetl. This king was a reformer and a builder who brought an era of enlightenment. Skeptics correctly point out that rulers merging their own identity with that of a god is a classic move to legitimize their power and their right. But what if the pattern itself is the clue? What if this wasn't just a king trying to make himself look good? Maybe Topoltson was trying to say he was the inheritor of a sacred, ancient tradition, a body of knowledge so profound that it was personified as the god Quetzalcoatl, a tradition left behind by a guardian who had visited his people long before. Not all guardians were wise teachers. Some were far more primal, and frankly, terrifying. Just look at the almost universal myth of dragons. In Japan, they were serpentine protectors of water. In Europe, they were treasure-hoarding monsters heroes had to slay. In India, serpentine beings called Naga were seen as cosmic guardians of nature. And in Slavic folklore, the mysterious witch Baba Yaga often acts as a fearsome guardian of the forest. A moral gatekeeper who tests anyone who dares to enter her domain. Now anthropologists have compelling explanations for these figures. They suggest dragons might be a personification of our deepest fears of nature, or even an inherited genetic echo from our early primate ancestors' terror of snakes and predators. Baba Yaga could represent the intimidating but necessary shamans who lived on the edges of society. But does that close the book completely? The consistency across cultures is staggering. Could these myths be more than just metaphors for the wilderness? Could they be a distorted memory of a time when humanity was the only power on the planet, a memory of territorial guardians of nature itself? Maybe the stories weren't just meant to explain the darkness. Maybe they were originally meant as a warning. A wise advisor behind a throne. A feathered serpent delivering the arts of civilization. A goddess of strategy inspiring a city to greatness. And terrifying beasts guarding the wild corners of the world. All across the globe, in our most sophisticated epics, and our most primal tales. The same pattern keeps showing up. The story of ancient guardians shaping human destiny. Now, mainstream history offers a rational explanation for all this. These are shared archetypes, universal symbols born from the collective human psyche to help us make sense of the world. And honestly, that may be the truth. But what if it's not the whole truth? What if the reason these archetypes are universal is because the inspiration was universal? Could these myths, from dozens of different cultures that supposedly had no contact, be the fragmented memories of a single, forgotten reality? Not as disconnected legends, but as the scattered pieces of a global story. The story of ancient guardians who shaped our past, and maybe, just maybe, left a map for a future we have yet to claim. What do you think? Are these just fascinating myths? Or are we looking at the forgotten fingerprints of our ancient guides? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. This blend of history and myth is a puzzle. If you find these hidden connections as fascinating as we do, and want to explore more historical mysteries that challenge what we think we know, make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell. We go deeper into these questions every single week.